Wasn't expecting this one. Welcome all to fully, well, I was about to say fully loaded. It's not fully loaded. It's an away day show. We're not there yet, but welcome everyone. Away days is up and running. Let's go.
I remember I walked up into St James's and my hands, everything, my whole body just lit up. I've got goosebumps all over my skin.
I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time you come around. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that.
Good evening, everyone. Back again. I thought it was the summer. It's not quite yet. Still got but look, welcome all to Loading Mag NUFC. The ship keeps on sailing. Disappointing result last night against Crystal Palace. Not what we expected. If you haven't checked out already the review, make sure you do check that out. Yes, it's not pleasant because we lost, but actually a lot of positive talks about what's to come, and I'm sure we'll get into more of that this evening. But obviously alongside me, I've got Mr. Chris Hall. How you doing this evening, fella?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, all good. Busy day in work, but I was really pleased when you sent me a message late on saying that we were going to be doing an away day. So yeah, it's great to have Nick on, and hopefully talking positive about the game at the weekend. Maybe Nick won't be, who knows? But I certainly hope that we will be.
Definitely. And look, as well, there has been some other breaking news regarding Newcastle United this evening, a few bits. So stay tuned with that. Once the previews complete, we will be getting into that for sure. And great to see so many other people in the chat. We've got the likes of Lisa, Brandy and Blaze, and no Brandy though. Aqua today.
Yeah.
But the Blaze is in the house, and look, we are ready to get into it. Make sure you click those likes, do all that good stuff, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But let's get the main man in. Massive thanks from joining us. First time on the channel. I think we had Ollie last time, but welcoming Nick from the Sheffield United way. How you doing, Nick?
Not bad, gents. What's this P word that you keep talking about? Positivity. Not even heard any of that this season. God. Yeah, first time on the channel. Thanks for having me, gents.
No problem at all. And look, you talk about positivity, and we might as well get straight into it because obviously we thought, me and Chris and Daz at the channel, we thought we were going to get some positivity when we saw the scores at Old Trafford last night. And we were saying, please do us a favour. But unfortunately, wasn't quite to be. Man United always find moments. They just, I don't know how they do it, but they just find moments and they end up winning the game. But obviously, you were obviously watching the game and obviously, I'm sure on your channel, Sheffield United, where you'll be covering all of that stuff with regards to the game last night. But just how did you find it? What have you made now? You've had 24 hours to kind of like let it sink in about that result at Old Trafford.
I think it's a bit of both, to be fair, because I do think that we didn't expect to play half as well and have as much of not as much of the play, but more the fact that we created so many chances. Scored 2 goals away at Old Trafford's never easy either. Well, it is more these days, but not for teams like Sheffield United. We don't normally go to Old Trafford and score at least a couple of goals. So yeah, I think we all kind of went into that game thinking it's sort of a free hit. We've just lost to Burnley at home, which is, you can't really get much worse than that other than losing to Sheffield United at home because of where we are in the league. But yeah, we played okay. I think the defense has let us down all season. We've actually scored more goals than the last time we got relegated, so it just shows that it's the defense that's the problem. Yeah, we keep putting ourselves into good positions. We've done this quite a few times when we've gone away from home, thinking we're going to get nothing from the game, and then we go 1-0 up, we go 2-1 up, and then we somehow find a way to throw it away. But this time, I think it's less about throwing it away, and like you say, Man United just finding a way to put points on the board. It is frustrating, but at the end of the day, they've got some very, very good players, and yeah, Bruno Fernandes scoring an absolute screamer to make it 3-2. It's like, we can't do stuff like that. We don't have those sorts of players. So, yeah, it's one of those things. But, yeah, I was quite proud of him last night. I've not said that too much this season. So, yeah, it was a gentle reminder that the Premier League's not for us, shall we say.
Yeah, and it's I'm not going to lie and get Chris's thoughts on this as well in just a second, but it is looking a little bit bleak. I've got the league table here. You might want to look away, Nick, but obviously bottom of the league, 16 points. Mathematically, it could mean relegation on Saturday. Look, what have you made of this season? I know there's been some ups and downs in and around the club that haven't helped the matters, but like, what have you made this season? You know, being in the back in the Premier League, looking like you will be exiting at some point. How are you assessing it at this point, as you're, hard to say, but on the brink of that relegation?
I think we all kind of expected it from the start of the season, because we certainly didn't. The owner didn't back the manager at the time. We sold two of our best players in the lead up to the season, which is never good. I'm sure other teams have done it in the past, but yeah, just on probably 2 or 3 weeks before the start of the season, then you've got to scurry to find players to replace. I'm pretty sure that the management team and the scouts and everyone had an idea of who they were going to bring in, but we started the season with a worse side than we actually ended the season before last in a lower division. We were playing Crystal Palace first game of the season, and actually I think it's one of those games where we should have been looking to take points from the first two games, because it was Palace and then away at Forest, and we could have got something from that game even with a depleted squad. But we didn't have the players from the get-go, and actually it's transpired this season that we've just not had the quality on the pitch to get us through, well, even get us off the bottom, because I think we've been bottom of the league for probably 30 odd, well, 30, 32, 33 games, something like that, maybe even more. So yeah, it's been a really, really poor season. Like we had a poor season in the Premier League a few years back where we picked up, I think it was 23 points. We're not even going to touch that, which is really, really disappointing. Obviously, we've had Chris Wilder come in the meantime for Paul Heckingbottom. Had a slight upturn in form, but then it's gone back to losing 5s and 6s and 8s, as you guys will obviously know. But obviously that was under Paul Heckingbottom. But yeah, it's been a poor season. We didn't start as we meant to go on, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. And like I said earlier on, the defense has been a big part of us losing so many games, and the head's going down, because losing 5 and 6-0 week in, week out, obviously that's going to affect morale massively, which it has done. And I think the fact that we lost John Egan so early, club captain, been our central centre back for some years now. Obviously, you're gonna miss him. Chris Basham, another big voice in the changing rooms, whether we're going to play this season or not. He's still a big voice, and the fact that he's had such a horrific injury away at Fulham, having to come back from that, he's not been around the team as well. So we've lost a lot of big characters in the dressing room, and do you know what? I just think everything's kind of gone wrong for us this season. If we'd have kept a fully fit team all season, we may have just scraped staying up. But with all the injuries and you know not making the the quality of signing that we'd like to have made at the start of the season, we're always going to be destined to go down. But I never thought it'd be this bad.
Yeah, as Chris, as Nick just said, he never thought it'd be this bad. Like, obviously, from the outside looking in as a Newcastle fan, what have you made of Sheffield United's season? And I'll ask an additional question, and maybe Nick wants to jump in on this. You know, do you think they'll bounce straight back, or do you think it might be a difficult season in the Championship?
I'll be honest, I'll answer that one first. From what I've seen this season, I think it'll be difficult. I mean, Nick may have a different opinion on that, but I kind of feel I've been paying a bit more attention to the Championship this season, and I tell you what, they've got some good sides. Like, there's going to be some good sides that don't go up this season, and Sheffield United dropping down. Hopefully, you know, they can improve the squad, and hopefully, you know, they can bring in some fresh faces. Because I think my overall answer on, you know, do I think they'll bounce back? I'm not entirely sure. It would depend on the summer window for me. But in terms of how I've kind of assessed them this season, I've just been a little bit disappointed for the fans, really, because, you know, getting back into the Premier League is not easy. We've been there, haven't we, Pete? It's not an easy thing to do. And when you do get back in the Premier League, I do feel like, you know, you need to kind of put your money where your mouth is. You do need to bring in, you know, fresh faces and try and freshen the squad up. I mean, I was just reminding myself, and I know a few of the Sheffield United players, but I was just having a little look at them there. And there's a lot of players, isn't there, that like came up with them. And, you know, and as well, not that I want to particularly go in hard on anyone, but Nick, you can answer this as well in terms of, do you think you'll bounce back up? But this is the other little add-on I want to ask you. I feel like Oliver McBurney has like let you down a little bit this season, and the two times that I've seen, like he got red cards, didn't he? And it was just at times when you really needed that focal point up front. And he's actually half decent. I think maybe he's not getting the service or whatnot. I don't know, but I just felt like on a couple of occasions that I've seen, you've just got pointless red cards, and I thought you're letting your mates down there, because, you know, without him in the team, it looks difficult for you to see you scoring goals. I know you brought in Brayton Diaz, which I thought was a good signing actually in January, but I just felt like Oliver McBurney was going to be key to you know, staying up. I mean, we look at Carlton Morris, who's playing for Luton. You know, he's been integral for them as a 1 year at Forest. You know, these players, these clubs who are near the bottom, when they've got like a sole striker or the main striker, they need to stay on the pitch. And I just felt with McBurney, as soon as McBurney was getting suspended, I was just thinking, Sheffield United are in trouble here. I mean, is that a fair assessment, Nick? Am I fair to say that, or?
I think the bigger problem with Ollie McBurney is him just not being able to stay fit, to be honest. And you're right in the fact that getting yourself sent off, one of those was a really silly red card, and it wasn't a red card because I think it was Spurs, and he asked the referee why he'd given a free kick or something like that, and he booked him. And it's like, I just asked why, and I think people read him as well, and were like, that's exactly what he said. So yeah, there's been a couple of silly ones. The one against Burnley for flailing arms and stuff. Yeah, you can't really excuse that. But yeah, he's got unlucky with one of those. But yeah, if you're putting yourself in a position where you could be sent off, that's the wrong place to be. And yes, he has done some silly things in the past. But like I say, the biggest thing for us is he needed to stay fit all season. And he's just been in and out of the treatment room, and he's again injured for months. Apparently, his deal's up at the end of the season, and this could be the end of Ollie McBurney at Sheffield United. Unfortunately, I really like the man. He's a good guy, but unfortunately, most of his career at Bramall Lane has been blighted with injury and poor form. Last season, he was really, really good, but again, he got injured last season. Iliman Ndiaye was our shining light last season. He was absolutely fantastic, and I think the reason why Ollie McBurney was so good last season is because he had Iliman around him. And this season, he's not really had, until Ben Brereton Diaz got brought in, a player to kind of play off, because Cameron Archer's been in and out of form. I don't know what that's about, because we should be playing Cameron Archer into form, but Hecky benched him a few times, Wilder benched him a few times, then he got injured. So we've just never really had, until recently, with Ben Brereton Diaz and Ollie McBurney starting up front together, two strikers, which we quite often play up front together, two strikers that have been able to gel together. And most of the side have struggled to gel together because we've had a back four, we've had a back five, we've had three different centre backs. We've had it's been crazy. George Baldock, who's another one of our big voices in the changing room, he's been injured for a lot of the season. We've been changing left backs every other week. Max Lowe, another player that's got injured for the rest of the season. Reece Norrington-Davis, another one of our young lads who we expected to come good this season. He came back and then got injured again straight away. So it's just injury after injury, and that's a problem. And Ollie McBurney is a big part of that. He's a big voice in the changing room, and again, that's another one that we've lost. So it's not been an easy season, and a lot of people look at the games that we're losing and stuff, and thinking, oh, they're one of the worst teams to ever play in the Premier League, and we're actually not. But well, we are one of them, but we're not anywhere near sort of Derby's team that we're talking about. But I suppose it's the fact that we've conceded so many goals, and we've conceded more goals than anyone ever before, has to put us sort of round there. But I just think we've had a lot of problems this season with injuries. Obviously, the manager going in, a new manager coming in, trying to kind of bed in his regime, even though he is a former manager himself. There's a lot of players that are different. And Chris Wilder always used to love a British core, a British and Irish core, and you've got a Brazilian in the midfield, which we've never had. We've got a Serbian at the back. We've got a Serbian in the goal. Sorry, we've got a Bosnian at the back, a Serbian in the goal. Chris Wilder is known for liking that British core, and it's kind of not there as much as what it used to be. So it's been a tough season for a lot of different reasons, but injuries have certainly been one of the key parts to why we've finished with such a low total.
I'm just conscious of how long we've got you. I don't know how long.
We've got another 10. We've got another 10.
Another 10. That's absolutely fine, because we've got quite a few questions in, and obviously wanted to talk about the game a little bit. There was one question that came in, and it's sort of game related. So I'll just take this off you 1 second, Chris.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
And it's from Lisa, and she said, for Nick, Newcastle put 8 goals past you last time we met. Are you expecting the same again on Saturday, or has your play defense improved any? Obviously, it was a huge scoreline for us as well as yourself. I think we were surprised by it just as much, but could it be something like that again at St James's Park, or Wilder set you up differently now?
Well, to be honest, a Burnley fan said to me, we're going to batter you again 5-0. And I'm like, you've got absolutely no chance. And then they went and beat us 4-1. So anything's possible. But I feel like that game, the stars just aligned for Newcastle, because we were terrible. You were absolutely on fire. Every time you went forward, you scored. It weren't you looked like scoring, you scored. Yeah. So, yeah, I think after 4-5, Chris Wilder's a manager that likes to kind of shut up shop to make sure it's not an absolute embarrassment. So under Hecky, I felt like he tried to just throw on. I think he threw on like Tom Davis and like players that weren't going to kind of stop goals going in. And I'll be honest, I'm a season ticket holder. That's the only game I've missed this season because I was on holiday, and I'm so glad I missed that one. I was just getting back. I was on the plane. I think I landed just as the game started, so I was so glad I weren't in the ground for that one. But I've certainly seen 6s and 5s this season as well, but I can't see that happening in this game, to be perfectly honest. We are at least showing more grit and determination away from home as well. We shipped 4 against Man United. I think the other thing is Chris Wilder will probably be looking at trying not to break 100 goals conceded, because if we concede 2 goals, an average of 2 goals in the next 4 games, we hit 100 goals conceded. So I think that'll be in the back of the minds. I think we'll try and defend better than what we did against Manchester United, because I think the fact that we went 1-0 up and then 2-1 up, we were thinking we're going to try and win this game, and it just wasn't to be. So I can't imagine us conceding 8 goals in this game. I think 4 is a maximum for us in recent weeks. So yeah. I don't even. 4's not happening. We're winning this game. We're winning this game. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say, Nick, I'd take 4. I'd take 4. I would.
Yeah. Can we just agree 4-0 right now? I'm fine with that.
I was about to say that
Just not
I'd take 4 after our defeat to Palace. But Chris, is there a few questions we can throw Nick's way before we kind of get his thoughts on the game?
Yeah,
let him go.
Absolutely, mate. Let's see. I don't know whether you touched on this before, Nick, so apologies if you did, but Toon Gamer says, what do you think's been the biggest issue at Sheffield United this season, other than the transfers that you spoke about? What, like, tactically or formation or the manager? Like, what did you think of the manager change as well? Were you behind that?
I was behind it at the time. I thought it was the right thing to do. It was a risk, but what's not a risk when you are trying to stay up in the Premier League? There's not many managers out there that you could be like, we're banking on him to keep us up. There's no kind of like a Sam Allardyce from the past who could do that. There's no managers for me that were within our budget or within our reach to bring in. I think we gambled on the fact that Chris Wilder knew the club. He knew some of the players. He brought some of the players in. I think that the owner thought that Chris Wilder would get that bounce, and initially we got a little bit of that because we played Liverpool in his first game and we were fantastic. And then I think it was the Brentford game, the game after, where we beat them. So it started well. We only conceded a second goal against Liverpool in the last minute. So it was 1-0 for most of the game. And then obviously going and beating Brentford, it started really well. And I think we all expected it to carry on like that. It didn't. I think that Chris himself was shocked about maybe the mentality of some of the players. It might have just been the fact that we've been spanked quite a few times before that, and the players were kind of down in the dumps. But when a new manager comes in, you expect a bit of a bounce. You expect some players playing for the shirt. And I think he's been a little bit shocked because he's used to a certain type of mentality from a player. And that's what he built at Sheffield United. He was the manager for, I'm trying to think now, 5-6 years, something like that. And he took us from League One. He built the culture. He brought in the players that he wanted to bring in, and then just improved it season on season, and then got to a place. And then obviously it all went wrong after, during and sort of after lockdown, because we finished 9th in the Premier League under Chris Wilder, and the second season got relegated. So
should have got Europe. Should have got Europe.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah, and if it wasn't for lockdown, I think we'd have got there. But all that time away, and then not playing in front of crowds, it was tough because big time players, I think during lockdown, they enjoyed playing without crowds, whereas we needed it. Ollie McBurney was saying this on a podcast the other day, that he needed the crowd to get him up for a game or help him get up for a game, and someone throwing a tackle in there and the crowd going wild and winning a corner and the crowd almost cheering it into the back of the net. But unfortunately, under Wilder this time, it's not quite worked. He will be given, he's got 1.5 years on his contract, so he's got a full season in the Championship next season. And I think you, Chris, alluded to it earlier on, that this is going to be the biggest transfer window of my lifetime anyway, because we've got so many players out of contract. I don't know who's going to be here next season. We've got some decent players that will be here next season. We've got some that will probably have to sell just to balance the books. So it's going to be a scary one, but an exciting one, because it could all go wrong, or we could go bouncing straight back up. But talking about the other teams that could be going up, Leicester, we're kind of, even though we don't like Leeds, we're kind of hoping that Leicester, Leeds and Southampton go up, because that's 3 of the big teams that are out of the Championship, and it gives us a bit more of a chance of going straight back up. But we'll see. Like I say, it's going to be a big transfer window. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And funnily enough, that's what I was going to come to next. I'll just ask you another couple of quick questions, Nick, before I know you've got to shoot, mate. Iniesta Van Alden says, how good is Ollie Arblaster, and how good do you think he can become in the future? And David Tofield also kind of asked a similar question, in that is it time to blood any younger players to prepare for next year, or is there no one coming through? So obviously Eugene Esteban Eldon's mentioned Ollie Arblaster, but is there any other youngsters as well that you're looking forward to seeing next season in the Championship, Nick, but also that maybe you're worried about keeping hold of?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Ollie Arblaster is probably the one right now that we're all talking about. He was obviously captain the other night against Man United at 19 years old, which is I think he's the second youngest player to ever captain Sheffield United. And he's a fantastic player. And it's weird how he went on loan to Port Vale in League One. They were all crying, like screaming about him. And I'm thinking, if we get relegated, you know what? He'll be good in the Championship. And he's good in the Premier League. Like, what is going on? But Ollie Arblaster, yeah, one for the future. He's already playing for England in the youth ranks. He's been playing for England for years. I've not really seen him properly until recently, where he's been thrust into the first team because of how rubbish everybody else is playing. But we've also got Andre Brooks as well, who's a fantastic player. He got brought off at half-time against Man United. I'm not sure why, but when he came into the team, I was singing his praises for days because that lad is extremely talented. And I don't know why he's not been getting much game time recently, but yeah, I think he'll get more game time next season. We'll see what he's about. Will Asula as well, striker, Danish under-21s international. He's one of these players that he's got everything except for the finish. So hopefully, I think once one goes in, 2, 3, 4, 5 will go in, and I think he's Championship quality already. He's just not getting the game time at the moment because McBurney, Brereton Diaz, Archer are all in front of him. So all those three, I'm expecting not to be at Bramall Lane next season. With two of them, Archer's got to go back to Aston Villa because that's the contract that we struck for some reason. Brereton Diaz is on loan, obviously, and Ollie McBurney's coming to the end of his contract. So Will Asula will be big for us next season, unless we bring in a boatload of strikers and send him out on loan. But whatever happens, I think Will Asula will have a really, really good career. I think they're the three big ones for us. I think they'll all get game time next season. And yeah, it is exciting. We have got some good players moving forward and coming through the ranks because we've always had good players coming through the ranks. Harry Maguire came through, Kyle Walker, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Matthew Lowton. I don't know why I said Matthew Lowton, but all Premier League players and some
you can have Matthew Lowton.
Yeah, we'll take him. Phil Jagielka as well. We've had lots and lots of David Brooks. We've had lots of really, really good players that have come through our ranks, lots that have got international recognition as well. So yeah, we're not short on really good young players.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I know you've got to shoot, and really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us. We're going to continue on the discussion with regards to the preview after this, but just before you go, you kind of give us a little match prediction. I'm hoping you're going to say the 4-0 to Newcastle, but on a serious note, what do you think the score will be? Because I think you're going to the game. You're going to be there?
Yeah. I'm going to the game. Yeah, me and my wife are going and having the night in Newcastle. So, no, I'm going to all the last three. So I went to Brentford. That was a terrible decision. Going to Newcastle, probably another terrible decision. And then I'm going to Everton for the last game, which will be super fun because we'll be relegated by that point. So I'm just hoping that we don't get relegated in this game. It would be probably quite nice for the players to have that monkey off the back. But at the same time, yeah, it's going to be depressing if we do go down. I am going to say we're going to put up a fight, but 2-1 or 3-1 Newcastle.
Okay. Well, Nick, like I say, regardless of what happens on Saturday, hopefully that you guys, if you do go down, that you bounce straight back up, that you're able to rebuild, because we know what it's like when you have difficult moments. We've been there. We've been down in the Championship, so we know the situation. So yeah, best of luck to you guys. Like I said, I've got a really good friend who's a mad Blades fan. I've been to numerous games at Bramall Lane with him over the years, so I know like that you've got a great support, and yeah, hopefully you get lots of wins so you can get all those celebrations back next season, because that's what my mate Craig says. He loves the Championship because you get loads of wins, you get loads of days out, away days, and scoring loads of goals. He prefers it in the Premier League.
Yeah, and if you lose on a Saturday, you've got another Tuesday, then you got another Saturday, and then than a Wednesday. It's just it's fast and furious and it's fun. Let's hope VAR's not in the Championship next season. But thank you for all the comments as well. Everyone's so nice. It's brilliant. It's great to see.
You need to come back, Nick. You need to come back.
Yeah,
you need to come back. We have got a unique community. We are massively appreciative of all our rival sort of supporters. And obviously they appreciate you taking the time as well. But look, we'll let you go. You take care, mate. Have a good trip, safe trip there and back. And I'm sure the Geordies up there will look after you for sure.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, guys. Really appreciate it. See you soon.
Take care, Nick. All the best, mate.
See you later. Great to have Nick on. Brilliant guest. Just wish we would have had him on for longer, but he only had a short window and he was more than happy to come on. So great to have him there. However, we are not done. We've got a few more things. Oh, God. Oh, pal. I'm glad that comment came on when he left.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. But we're not done yet, guys. We've got lots to talk about, as well as some breaking news that's gone on over the course of this evening that we do need to talk about. But look, as we're on the process of talking match related things, we might as well get some stats.
Evening, lads.
Here he is. He's back again. Good evening, Keith. Appreciate it as well for the late notice. It's a late notice for us, late notice for you, but we're here and we're doing away days. How are you this evening? And of course, what stats have you got for us this week, mate?
Bit nippy out there, isn't it? For a late April, I've got to say.
Yeah, it is.
It's cold outside.
Just a bit.
Aye. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Okay, I mean, as well as to be expected. I mean, after last night's game.
Summer's in the house. Great to have Summer in. How you doing?
You okay? Good. Sure good. All good.
Good. Ready to hear your stats, Keith?
Yes.
Just in time for some stats, eh?
That's why she come on. Keith.
I love it.
Now you're just making the ego. Absolutely. Got a few stats here. Pulled together last minute. Has to be said, but Newcastle's all-time record against Sheffield United, surprisingly quite even. 120 games, 50 wins, 20 draws, and 50 defeats. So historically, it's quite an even fixture. And Newcastle have a slightly better goal scoring record than Sheffield United in this fixture, 176 goals compared to 173 scored for Sheffield United. In the Premier League era as well, Newcastle have scored 23 goals compared to Sheffield United's 6 goals in this fixture. Managers, Eddie Howe, he's managed 4 games. He's got 1 win, 1 draw and 2 defeats. And Chris Whaler back on the helm at Sheffield United. His record against Newcastle in games he's managed 4 games, 1 win, no draws and 3 defeats. Goalkeepers, Wes Fodrington. He's only had 1 clean sheet in 26 games for Sheffield United this season, so he's had a very busy season at the back. Last season, he managed 18 clean sheets in 44 games for Sheffield United in the Championship. So that just goes to show you, I guess, the leap between the top end of the Championship and the Premiership these days, because he had a blinder, one of the best goalkeeping stats in the Championship last year. Martin Dubravka, he's managed 5 clean sheets in 19 games for Newcastle this season. Couple of players, a few for Sheffield United. Jayden Bogle, he's scored his third league goal last night against Man United, and the others came against Man City and Chelsea. And he's the second Sheffield United player to score against Manchester clubs in the Premier League era. And the other one being the legendary Brian Deane in 92-93 season. Another Sheffield United player, Ben Brereton Diaz, he's scored 5 goals in just 10 Premier League games this season. So he's got quite a good rate, quite dangerous there. With Ollie McBurney, he's netted more for goals for Sheffield United this season with 6 goals and 21s. And with Brereton Diaz, Sheffield United are actually averaging 1.5 goals per game this season. So they're quite lethal with them. And it was shown against United yesterday because there were obviously 2 goals and there were 2, at some stages they were in a winning position against United for quite a long stage of that game yesterday at Old Trafford. A few general stats to round off with. In the game at Bramall Lane earlier this season, it was Sheffield United's largest ever defeat in league history, and it was close to the 5,000th league game as well. And it was the first time that they had conceded 8 goals in a league game since they lost 10-3 to Middlesbrough back in 1933. It was the quickest time ever that they had conceded 3 goals since from the start of a Premier League game as well. So it was 35 minutes that Newcastle had scored those 3 goals, the opening 3 goals. Newcastle, just for a bit of balance, with last night's disappointing result, they've now lost 8 of their past 11 away games in the Premier League. So if they don't qualify for Europe again, that's a significant factor in how they haven't qualified this season. So they've won 3 out of the last 11. They've also lost on 4 occasions in London this season as well. And that matches, again, that's only topped by their run against London teams back in 2000 and 2001 season and 2005, 2006, where they lost 5 times in London in those seasons. Only against Man City in August have Newcastle recorded fewer shots on target in a league game than last night's against Crystal Palace, where they only had 2 shots on target in the whole game. Against Man City in the summer last year, it was just the 1 shot on target. And lastly, just to round off, Sheffield United have now conceded 92 goals in the Premier League this season, and that's the most that any side has conceded in the 38 game campaign in the Premier League history.
Did you say 92?
92 they've conceded.
It's unreal, that, isn't it?
That's crazy. You're talking an average of 3
a game
that they've been conceding.
Wow. That's crazy.
We need to make that 100 on Saturday, then, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
All I'll say is, can you remember a bit of symmetry here. Can you remember the reverse fixture? I know it was away, but can you remember the reverse fixture after Newcastle last beat a team from Sheffield United, Sheffield in the 99-2000 season, where we beat Sheffield Wednesday 8-0 at St James's Park, and then we went to Hillsborough to play Sheffield Wednesday, and they were effectively down as well. I think in mid-February, it was just after Man United would beat Man United 3-0. And it was surprising because they'd done quite well, Sheffield Wednesday, in that game. They still lost, but it was only 2-0 in that fixture at Hillsborough that season.
10-0 aggregate, though. Some aggregate, that.
Definitely. Look, great stats as always, Keith. Brilliant stuff. And look, we'll see whether we can continue some of those good stats. Certainly with the goal scoring feats on Saturday, that's for sure. But just a few little comments in there. We always get Spurs King TV in there. Look, we just know how to beat you at St James's Park. That's the reality. That's just how it is. And it was a blip. We're looking to put that right on Saturday. But great to have you in the chat. Brilliant stuff as always. And of course, I just wanted to give Rich a shout out just because I'm so glad that you were joking. I knew you were, but I'm so glad you were because I wasn't about to give Tabak any sort of like praise after last night. But yeah, hope you're all good, Rich. Good to see you in the chat as well. Boys, gonna shoot through. We'll do a quick fire because obviously we're just looking at our perspective. But I put the team out that played for Sheffield United against Man United last night. That was kind of how they set up. That was their team. Let's have a look at our team. Like, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts actually about this team, particularly after the results, like the result last night and the performance. But Chris, what are you thinking with regards to Newcastle United on Saturday? Are you making any changes? Are you changing style, formation? What are you thinking?
You're hoping I'm going to say we're changing formation because for me we're definitely changing formation. I'm gonna caveat this as I always do. Well, not always, but a lot of the time I always say this is what I think Eddie Howe will pick, and I think this is the team he'll pick in my opinion. So Pete, I'm going to go with Martin Dubravka in goal.
Okay.
I'm going to say left back Lewis Hall.
Okay, find him. There he is. Lovely.
I'm going to say left centre back is going to be Dan Burn.
Yeah, I'll just add him a second ago. Yeah, that's it.
Right centre back is going to be Fabian Schär.
Yep.
And I think right back is going to be Emil Kraft.
Okay.
Because I don't expect Tino to be ready. Obviously, if Tino is ready, brilliant. I think he'll play Kraft over Jacob Murphy, if I'm honest. Particularly as I think this is going to be a flat back four, so I think he'll go with Kraft. I think he'll be free in midfield, so I'm expecting Bruno to be in the holding position.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about Bruno a little bit later on in the show.
Oh, absolutely. I think left of the centre of the three will be Elliot Anderson.
Okay. I'll drop him in here.
Yeah, I think on the right will be Sean Longstaff. Purely because I don't think we've got many options, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Now, this one, and it'd be interesting to see how Keith critiques this. This one's interesting for me. I'm going to go with what I think Eddie Howe's going to do. But I did toy with the idea of Alexander Isak starting on the left and Callum Wilson through the middle. Did toy with it, but I think it's probably too early for Callum Wilson. So I'm going to stick with what I think he'll do. And I think that will be Harvey Barnes on the left.
Okay.
Anthony Gordon on the right.
Yeah.
And Alexander Isak through the middle. But don't be surprised, like we saw in the game against Palace, if Callum Wilson comes on and then Isak drifts out to the left. Because I know that, it's worked for us before and it's worked for us, but on the other hand, why rush Callum Wilson back for when you're at home to the bottom of the league? So it's probably unlikely. I think Alexander Isak should do the job, and I would expect Eddie Howe probably on the 60-65 minute mark. Maybe he'll just take Alexander Isak off and wrap him in cotton wool and say, keep yourself ready for the next game. So yeah, that's the team I think we'll start with.
Okay, there's the teams out and about. Keith, are you going with that lineup? Chris has given some alternatives that could have been potentially done. I'll just run through. You've got the likes of Wilson now on the bench. Murphy, it looks like, would be on the bench on the back of that. We don't know if there's going to be a surprise, someone like Joe Linton. Probably not. Livramento, is he going to be on the bench as an emergency? And then we've got obviously the Paul Dummets and the Matt Ritchie. So we've got some options off the bench. What are you thinking?
Chris Hall, you took the words right out of my mouth for the Wilson situation. What you don't need to risk Wilson for sure. Not in this game. just late on in the game. Maybe if you need, if for instance, if you're 2-0 up and you want an extra goal, for instance, if the game's not saved, then bring them on maybe on the 65, 70-minute mark.
Yeah.
Continue to just gradually build that fitness up again and match fitness up. I can see your line of thinking as well with the back four, to be honest, as well. Like, instead of Murphy, you would go naturally more with Kraft, wouldn't you, really?
I think so.
Go to that. You wouldn't, I mean, it's not really Murphy's natural position as such. So just Kraft in that position. Preferably, I would prefer a Livramento, but, with the options available, if you need to, then you go with Kraft in that for this game.
And again, Keith, you could argue, couldn't you, a bit like the Wilson scenario, where if Livramento's a little bit touch and go, or he's only 80%, is Eddie Howe going to want to risk him at home to Sheffield United? Probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not worth the risk, really, as such. You would hope that at home at St. James's Park, with Newcastle looking to, erase what had happened the other night, that you'd hope that would be enough, really. You'd hope you'd not have to go full strength with that. So, yeah, absolutely. I think maybe late on in the game, you might want to bring Murphy on maybe for your subs if you're looking for subs in the game. And you could always, if you need a fresh bit of energy as well, you could always bring Livramento on late on in the game, perhaps, but if need be. But yeah, that's about as good enough lineup. I would hope that would be a good enough lineup, particularly offensively. You would hope that there was enough there to win the game for Newcastle.
Yeah,
definitely.
There are one or two little dangers that I've called out, though, in Sheffield United's attack for sure. But you'd hope that defence there with Shaw and Burn in his more natural position can help sort of, reduce that threat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've definitely got some threats, some players that can cause a number of problems. But I'm hoping that our threats and our firepower makes the difference, that's for sure. But just before we get on to that, massive thanks to Rich Joblin for your super chat. Thank you very much. Says, keep up the good work, lads. Great show. Hoping for a big win Saturday, as me and my little lad George will be there, and he's not seen us lose yet. So, George, make sure you keep us going to get those wins. We need those wins on the board. Hope you have a great day, both of you. And as we say, bring back 3 points, that's for sure. But many thank yous for that, Rich. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the tactics board, and it's interesting because obviously it's not a straight matchup formation. I'm looking at that in the way it's set up, and it looks a very flat midfield. So they will put bodies behind the ball. Nick said it himself. Chris Wilde has set up this team now to make them hard to beat. If this was the previous manager, I'd be confident we'd be scoring goals for fun. But they will be difficult to beat. And this is, for me, a big test. This is why this game isn't straightforward. We hope it is, but it might not be. And this is the thing, because we found it hard at times to break down lesser teams because they sit deeper with the ball and they like to hit on the counter. And when they've got this guy here, Berrien Diaz, he is a good counter-attacking player. Hamer is very, very good as well. Archer, we know, can finish. So they've got players. Bogle is the one that got forward and scored the goal at Old Trafford, I believe, last night. So they've got players that can cause problems. But I look at this back line, and yes, he's a good centre-back. He's okay. Don't know too much about Trusty, but I'm just thinking there is so much to attack in that area. And 92 goals, boys. 92 goals. We should be putting a couple past these, and we should have the fire in our belly as well after this game. But look, bringing Lewis Hall in, as you mentioned, Chris, will be brilliant to get forward that attacking fullback. We saw that glimpses. We talked about it on the reaction show. We saw the glimpses of that when Lewis Hall comes off the bench. He likes to get forward into these areas. He's got the pace to get back in. Kraft, maybe less so. We can get forward, but maybe because we've got the pace of Gordon making those runs, and also in this little pocket here, as we saw against Palace in the second half, Longstaff can make those runs. There's probably less emphasis on Kraft getting forward, so we might see him potentially tuck into here to allow Hall to get forward and be more attacking. But that will be in game type of tactics. You won't see that starting. The key here for me is these three, because they're going to try and cloud this. And this is what happened against Palace for me, is they crowded Bruno Guimaraes, and he didn't have the time on the ball to exploit the ball and to create chances. The one time that he did, he put it through for Isak, and Isak just overran it when Henderson made the save in the first half. Other than that, he never really got the time and space to exploit. And usually at St. James's Park, he does, and that'll be a big key in the game. I think if these three allow him to get the ball in, and they're going to have to be really tight on him, he will dictate the play and he'll create problems for Sheffield United. I'm convinced of it. So that's where I see it. I want Isak back on the score sheet at the weekend. I want Barnes back on the score sheet at the weekend. Gordon as well. I need these front three to put this team to the sword. We need a reaction after that game because look, I don't know what you boys think. I put a tweet out last night, having thought about the game after we'd done the show. And I kind of said, look, we shouldn't be putting our frustrations at Eddie Howe. For me, it was the players that just didn't action the tactics or the plan to get the win. I just didn't think there was enough. They didn't give enough. They didn't work hard enough. There wasn't enough of quality on the pitch. And that was just my opinion. So for me, I'm going into this game saying, right, to the players, what have you got for me? What have you got to get us up and excited and happy and confident again, like you had us in the previous 4 games? What have you got for us? I'm expecting a performance from these boys. Do you think I'm wrong in thinking that actually it's we shouldn't be putting our question marks with Eddie Howe and it should be at the players for not performing, or do you think it's the other way around? What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think you're wrong to say that, Pete. I would just add in as a caveat that I do think we set up wrong against Palace. I mean, hindsight's a brilliant thing, isn't it? And I get why he set up against Palace. We spoke about it on away days. We spoke about it, but on reflection, it was just like Palace were bringing different things to the table. And for me, I suppose the biggest disappointment was that we didn't react in game. Because it was clear to see, I mean, we saw it, didn't we? It was clear to see that Eze was just running amok at one point, and it was like, right, this isn't quite working here. Maybe it had vibes of the Fulham game where, do you know what, we'll withstand all the pressure and then we'll sort it out. But it kind of just felt like we rolled the dice a little bit too late for me. That was disappointing. But I'm not, as I say, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, because I think the players could have done better. And I fully agree. I fully agree with what you said at the end about the players owing us one. I think the players owe Eddie Howe one, and the players owe the fans one. Because obviously we went to Palace in high hopes, didn't happen. And back at St James's Park with a threat to anybody, and really we should be dismantling the Sheffield United side.
Yeah, definitely. Any thoughts, Keith, before we come off the tactics board?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they've got it to do now, that's for sure, because it was flat last night for sure. The duo performance, and it's up to them now. How much do they want it? Do they want to be in Europe next year?
Yeah. There you go. That's a great question to kind of end that on. Do they want to be in Europe next year? And I hope, and I'm sure he is, I think Eddie Howe will be saying that to them in the changing rooms Saturday, sort of 2:00, as they're getting ready to go out and warming up. Do you want to be?
Do they want to be? Do they want to be at this club next year? Some of the players, because there could be a few going out that door. To get new players in, a bit of wheeling and dealing.
Definitely. I'm going to take the tactics board off, but I was just going to bring that up, Chris, and I'm really glad that you brought that, because I think that's a really good point, Alan, is that people cannot accept that we have a lot of power, a lot of lower Premier League players. It's a reality. We've just named a load of them. And look, let me put it back up again on the board. Look at that tactics board there. Like Emil Kraft, like with all due respect, he gives everything, but as a player, you wouldn't necessarily have him starting in your team. Like Dan Burn's been really good recently, but again, would he be a starting centre back? Probably not. Martin Dubravka wouldn't be a starting goalkeeper. Sean Longstaff, he's a Geordie as much as we love him because he represents the club. Would you have him instead of Tonali? No, you probably wouldn't. Okay. Elliot Anderson, would he be a starter in this midfield, in this team if Joe Linton was here? No, he wouldn't. So you've got players there, and you don't have to go through the squad to look at others. Paul Dummett, for example, Jamal Lascelles ideally won't be starting. Matt Target, exactly the same. You go through the team, Matt Ritchie, Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron. You go through that team, boys. And we have to remember where we're at right now.
Yeah, we do.
We're not quite there
And
yet.
also with current PSR regulations, if we'd have been back, 10 or so years, maybe the transition would be quicker, in the last few years. So maybe some of those players wouldn't be there with those conditions, but we are where we are.
We are where we are, boys. Absolutely. Look, we'll get the predictions at the end just before we wrap up. We talked about the tactics board, various other things. There's a few things that popped up today I wanted to get your thoughts on. Ultimately, there's been some movement with this man. So David Ornstein has said, as an exclusive, Dan Ashworth is taking Newcastle United to arbitration in a bid to resolve the Man United move. No agreement between the clubs to break an impasse. So set to be decided by a third party. Planned to start in May and could take a number of weeks. So it could be well into June after the season before we get any sort of confirmation of whether this is going to happen. And I wanted to focus on Dan Ashworth. Or is it? We never know. Could well be. Is it a mask? But just want to get your thoughts on the Dan Ashworth situation. So, like looking at it on face value on that breaking news, Chris. What are your thoughts?
It doesn't surprise me. I believe it's underhand tactics for Man United. I think they're now just trying to squirm out of paying any kind of money for Dan Ashworth, or maybe even like a small compensation package. But like the rumours that have come out, we've heard, haven't we, that it was at Man United were trying to pay 2 or 3 million for Dan Ashworth, which is absolutely laughable, considering I think we paid 5 or 6 million for Dan Ashworth from Brighton. So I don't know how they think that they can just come in and take him for a lesser price than what we paid for him. For me, the bare minimum should be double figures in the millions. Bare minimum. We've got to be asking for over 10 million. And I believe, if it did, go to tribunal, I think they would favour it in the side of Newcastle, because at the end of the day, if you pay 5-6 million for a person and then that person decides they want to leave, they shouldn't then come in and pay half the package that you paid to bring them into the club in the first place. It's just not on. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think it's probably underhand tactics from Man United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and probably Dan Ashworth. So I'm sure that their plan is to try and scup at our plans in terms of getting a decent fee for them, and they're hoping that they can get them on the cheap. But I don't think they will.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to rumble on. He's got a contract. He has to adhere to that.
Yeah, he does.
And so, as part of his contract, he had this agreement in place. So, it's come out. Luke Edwards has said tonight that Newcastle feel that they've got a really strong case and they're happy with their position. And I think they should be. But Keith, just before we wrap up and go to predictions, because we're going to be shooting off in just a second, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. And Chris, feel free to come in as well. Fabrizio Romano has announced that Bruno Guimaraes' release clause is valid between the last week of May and the last week of June. Okay, so there's a 4-week window in which his 100 million release clause is valid for. In July and August, Newcastle have total control of the price and potential negotiations. What do you make of that news, Keith? And Chris, feel free to jump in as well.
Newcastle aren't desperate to sell straight away, are they? Really? It depends how this sort of Man City rumour link evolves, how much is in it as well. Because I think if there is a club that I think there's one or two, there's a couple of clubs that could turn his head. You know, City could in their position with what they can offer and where they are right now, and Real Madrid. They're the other ones that could. I mean, who would turn down Real Madrid? I know he's happy and everything, but he's human at the end of the day. His head can be turned, but it depends how this rackets up in the media, really, with the Man City thing, how much is in it. The thing is, he could go to Man City and get lost there as well. There's players who've been to Man City, good players who just, Man City just sign people for fun, and sometimes they don't get integrated properly as well. Newcastle aren't desperate to sell, and as you say, if it gets dragged on and on and on in that month, because these things can take a while to happen, then if it goes into June, then Newcastle can just ramp it up, can't they? If the hand was to be forced, and if the player wanted to leave and it was controlled by the agent, then there'll come a point where, I think you've touched on it, Pete, and I fully agree, Bruno ain't going to be here forever. As much as we would like Bruno to be on the journey and to become break all records and be at the club for 10 years, it ain't going to happen. At some point, we'll need to sell a player like Bruno Guimaraes to go to the next level, like the club did in the past with Andy Cole in the mid-90s. We will need to do that and bring players in to get us to another level eventually. But I don't feel at this minute in time, I might be wrong, but I don't feel at the minute in time that he's going to go just yet.
We'll see how that rumbles on. And we're going to continue to have these conversations about the Dan Ashworth situation, about the Bruno situation. Toon Gamers put in about the Mail and Dougie Freeman. I've tweeted out about that. It was only yesterday we were talking about, the other day, sorry, we were talking about it with Rich, the Crystal Palace fan. D, I've spoken to about Dougie Freeman as well. He's done an impressive job at Crystal Palace. Well sought after. Man United are looking at him as well, apparently, to put into their team. So it's not like he's not got the credentials to be a part of Newcastle United's backroom team. He would be an astute signing. And he's responsible for a lot of these players that are at Palace doing a great job right now. So yeah.
I just want to say one thing, Pete, about Dan Ashworth. I think Dan summed it best on Twitter earlier with his message about Dan Ashworth, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the message with all things Bruno, with all things Dan Ashworth and Dougie Freeman, but we'll continue to talk about them as we go along. Quick predictions before we go out. I think Newcastle will hit back. I'm going for a 3-0 Newcastle United win. Chris, what are you thinking?
Do you know what? Nick's put 4-0 in my head now. I'm going to say 4-0. I think Newcastle win 4-0. Yeah, Toon Gamers on board as well. Yeah.
There we go. Look, Keith, you have the final say. What are we going for this week?
Well, the old Newcastle performance, the other fans' performance, I think there's going to be a demand for it. There's going to be a great atmosphere at the ground demanding it. I think that there could be one or two surprises along this way. I think Sheffield United, now they're relegated, they're just going for it, aren't they, really? They've got nothing to lose. But I do think, even though there might be a surprise, I can see 2 scores, and one of them is that, and the other is 3-1 as well. I think this game could be a bit like that Southampton game we had last season. Can you remember at St. James's, where I think you were at the game where Southampton actually took the lead, but Newcastle went 3-1 in the end. And I can see a similar sort of game against Sheffield United. Newcastle get those 3 points and get their European run for Europe going again.
Right. There we go. We're going to pick one. Daz has just said you're going to pick one at the two. Which one are you going to go for?
Let's go 3-1. Isaac hat trick. We need an Isaac hat trick. We've been waiting for one so long, haven't we?
Love it.
Got
Love
win
it, Keith.
prediction, people. Be happy in the chat and be happy with the win prediction from Keith. And make sure you hit those likes. We've got 37, between 37 and 40 likes. Is that it? Come on, people. Hit those likes. Make sure you do on your way out and show support for the channel. Massive thanks for staying with us tonight on a very last-minute show that was put together. Thank you to Keith coming and joining us. Thank you to Nick, part of the Sheffield United Way. If you haven't given them a follow and a subscription, make sure you do. Huge thanks to Chris. I know we've both got to shoot off now very, very quickly. But huge thanks to everyone in the chat. For all your comments, questions, and everything else. Leave a comment on the show afterwards. Give it a like. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Let people know about all the content that we do on Loaded Mag NUFC. And look, we're out of here. We do love playing away. Chris?
How'd you like that?
Take care, people.
Yeah.